Hi, everybody. I'm Joyce Pellino Crane, News Director at WestfordCAT. I am here today with two state representatives. State Representative Paul McMurtry, who is the chair of the Arts and Culture and Tourism Committee with the House, and Jim Arciero, our local state representative, a Westford Democrat. Hi to both of you.
Hello.
Hello, Joyce. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, well, I'm very grateful that you came on. We're here to talk about Bill 4045, which Representative McMurtry filed. When did you file that, Paul?
Actually, this is, each session runs 2 years. This is the a refile from the previous session. So we filed this in 2019.
2019, and what?
But it was filed prior to that as well.
By someone else or by you?
Oh, by me.
I see. So what was the interest that you had in community access TV that prompted you to do this?
Well, first of all, Joyce, I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate my colleague, Representative Arciero, inviting me to join you. I've had a long background in the entertainment, personally entertainment fields. I was a disc jockey for many years, but also had a couple video stores, and now I currently own and operate a small independent art house theater. But more than that, my personal background, I served on the local community access board many years ago, and I do have a great relationship with both the community access stations of the towns that I represent. So for me, I saw the evolution of the industry changing, and this was an opportunity for us to capture that change and try to find some sort of revenue stream so that we can continue to provide local access to the residents of the Commonwealth.
Wonderful. I was going to ask you some questions about your movie theater. I'll get back to that. Jim, I just wanted to sort of get your feel for this bill and for community access. And you've been very supportive, but I wanted to know where it begins and ends.
Well, and for myself, it's been truly, a labor of love being involved with local cable access. I look back, oh my goodness, I think it was 6th grade, Joyce, and we had this conversation the other day, and WestfordCAT used to be Cablevision. I think that was a few of its alias, if you will, or identities. And it was Cablevision. It was at across from Bell's Bistro at the plaza right there. And that was a time when I was introduced to it, just learning a little bit about cable camp and how working in a cable studio worked, and it was very exciting at the time. And this is a long time ago. But that tradition of community involvement for myself and for local cable access sort of started at a young age. And I was on the original WestfordCAT board when Comcast used to house Westford Community Access Television, or Cablevision, if you will, over on Liberty Way. And through the franchise agreements, a portion of monies went to the cable provider to operate the organization, to provide educational opportunities, to provide really transparency and accountability for government meetings here in Westford and throughout the 351 cities in town. It's incredibly important to maintain that level of credibility with the public, but also quality for the folks who can utilize the studio. You always see, Joyce, I think, as various volunteers coming into the studio to do work, to at least before the pandemic, that sort of changed everything. But it's a jewel of the community. And as we're seeing things change with technology and things progressing towards a streaming service, we have to have the conversation of how those revenues can be grasped, because right now, streaming services are able to move forward without any sort of monies going to the local community. And this legislation would ensure that a portion of that streaming monies would go to the local cable access studio. Because as we're seeing, we're just seeing that sort of change, like we saw. I want to use this example, but vinyl to 8-track, which didn't work that well, to tape, which was popular for a while, which CD was popular for a while. Now we're back to vinyl. But nonetheless, we start to see these changes that we need to keep up with as a community to allow these organizations to thrive and to be a part of the community for people to enjoy. So this legislation, which has been filed the last couple of sessions by Representative Paul McMurtry, and Paul, thank you for coming on. I just think he's the perfect representative to file legislation like this. His experience in media, his experience as a small business owner, his experience in the nonprofit sector, and now as his chairmanship in arts and culture, it really is a real perfect fit for someone to champion this bill and to usher this bill forward. Now, I think the challenge is that there's over 7,000 bills filed each legislative session. In this session, I think the representative would agree with me, has been one of the more challenging. It's all challenging for so many families at home dealing with COVID-19 and the pandemic, and obviously dealing with children in school. My daughter in preschool. It's a tough thing. But as legislators, I think we're now, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's about 3.5 months ago, it was the first time in Massachusetts history, probably a little bit longer, that we went to remote voting. And, they always make the joke that getting legislators, when we're working and getting them in the chamber to work on legislation and to correlate efforts and votes, sometimes it's like herding cats. Think about that with 160 cell phones or landlines calling in. So it makes things a little bit more challenging. So I get back to how many bills were filed and how many bills have really been put on hold. Here we are in the end of the legislative session, almost on our way to the holiday season and Christmas. And we still have 5 conference committees, major pieces of legislation that typically we wouldn't be working to the January 1st deadline. This would be a period of time after the elections that we would have a little bit of sort of downtime to do more constituent work and moving into the holiday season. But right now we've been full on, legislative action until the end of this year.
Why?
So that stalled everything. So that's sort of put everything off. And this bill is I would say, Representative, another victim of circumstances.
Representative McMurtry.
Yes.
So what did you hear what Jim just said, that it's a victim of circumstances? Wondering if something will change next session.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just elaborate on that. And first of all, I want to thank Representative Arciero for his kind words regarding my experience and background that I bring to this, but he's certainly a co-sponsor, an active co-sponsor of the legislation. In fact, Representative Arciero and 72 of our other colleagues support this. So to me, community access TV across the Commonwealth are doing their job, getting their reps and senators involved in this important discussion. There's a lot of competing interests. Both Representative Arciero and I have other legislation that we file as well, and there's only so much bandwidth in that certain that specific 2-year legislative cycle of topics that rise to the the priority list and get enacted. So it's not because the bill was referred to study. In fact, back in February of this year, the Telecom Committee referred it to study. Doesn't mean that the conversation's over. Just for this session, we're able to now take it and refile it and make some tweaks and changes and additions and deletions to perhaps give it a more successful outcome in the upcoming session. So a lot of competing interests. My disposition on legislation that I file is to start a conversation, and this to me is a worthy conversation to start and continue to have in the upcoming session.
Do you want to explain what the bill is, or would you like me to read it?
No, yeah, I mean, I can give a little overview, but then you're welcome to read. So for your viewing audience, it just, as the representative indicated, the evolution of technology and entertainment and delivery systems has continued to change and it has an impact on the local access television in our communities. This will establish a 5% fee on digital streaming. This legislation puts a 5% fee on digital streaming providers, which use the public right away, already use it for free of charge. So, and again, just to be able to then take some revenue back from the millions that's generated from these providers, have some of it go back to the general fund, some back to our cities and towns, and then a portion of it back to our local access television stations.
Would you say, Representative, that you know, from the discussions we've had with other legislators and cable access providers that have come to your office over the last several sessions now to advocate and discuss this bill, is there a real fear that cable access providers and local cable access providers like WestfordCAT would have a very difficult time being solvent in the future if we don't make changes?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common theme from cable access television providers throughout the Commonwealth. So we have an opportunity to continue this conversation, have interviews like this, and make sure that we continue to have the support of our colleagues in the House and Senate so that we can try to find some alternative sources. And look, as media delivery changes, I think we have an opportunity here to maybe have cable access television stations take a more prominent place in our communities in a greater delivery of news and information. So next session maybe we'll be in a better position, especially as we emerge from the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a real concern, and you know, these cable providers are not going to take the initiative. It's going to have to be the local access and legislators, you know, being the liaison with our cities and towns so that we can give a resource, a financial tool to sustainability.
Now, you own a community theater.
I do. I'm there now.
Beautiful building. How old is that? Is that theater?
1927.
Unbelievable. Pristine. I recommend anybody watching this show today, please go to Paul's theater, the Denham Community Theater. It is a jewel. It is gorgeous.
Knock on wood, we can make it through this pandemic, but I appreciate that plug.
But it is classic. And you know, again, I'm gonna reiterate, Paul, that Representative, that I feel as though you're the perfect person for this bill because you're seeing the changes on, you know, in film, in Hollywood.
Sure.
I mean, how many times now are we talking about how it's looking as if a lot of the key big blockbuster films in the next year or so are going to be streamed?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just going to be, I mean, we talk about how things have changed for the better, for the worse, or just changed because of the pandemic. Well, my goodness, I mean, we're going to see a lot more streaming, don't you think, Representative?
Yeah, the whole distribution process has changed. So there's nothing in the pike right now for movie theaters to open as far as first run films. A lot of the major films have been pushed off to 2021. Some of those that they've decided not to push off, they're releasing on streaming. So it's really been a major disruption to the entire industry from production all the way down to exhibition. So we'll see.
Now, do you still have the Sofia Coppola film there, Representative?
No, On the Rocks.
Okay.
No, and again, there's another fascinating example. I mean, I think we were one of only, if more than only one theater in the entire country. It's from a major studio. Bill Murray, Sofia Coppola wrote and directed, huge film, and it just did not have a theatrical run. I don't think people are comfortable just yet, you know, coming back into movie theaters. But enough of that. I appreciate it.
I know.
I can talk about movie theaters.
I digress.
And maybe that's for a different show, Joyce. But
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, no, it's unique, and there's a bunch of these little art house theaters that, you know, every community used to have one in their downtown. Mm-hmm. And again, that could be with that background what brought me to being the lead sponsor on this.
Where you are today.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of co-sponsors, including the representative from Westford.
Yes, truly. But I wanted to have you define what streaming is for those out there who aren't clear on what that is. Representative,
you want to take that, or I'm happy to. Or
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's the delivery method. So if you know, at home you would have a cable box traditionally, and now there's the evolution of the Netflix and the Hulus, and the delivery method of entertainment. Even for me, in the world that I'm in, we used to get a physical 35 millimeter film in late 2013, early 2014. We converted to digital delivery. It's the same as happening for the at-home consumer. And so those digital streaming services and the providers that already bring the product into the home are utilizing these public rights of way free of charge. We just hope to, put a small fee on their service so that we can deliver back a sustainable revenue stream to local access TV.
And other representatives have also filed bills, right?
They're similar. I mean, this has a broad base of support in both the House and the Senate, the legislation, House 4045. But there's other reps who have filed legislation that is similar to this too, in support of local access TV. And again, the conversation that we have to have with your view is does the residents of the community I represent, the residents of the community of the district that Representative Arciero represents, do they derive a benefit from this? And if they do, they're going to have to reach out to their elected leaders to say, hey, can you support this legislation in the upcoming session so that we can continue to exist, continue to provide a service, continue to be a benefit, and offer transparency, as the representative indicated, for local government and, educational access.
I think the thing that I wonder if the thing that is most difficult for community access TV is the fact that young people have cell phones and this camera. And so it is not the same world anymore where you might borrow a camera from your local TV station and create some kind of video. Our children are using this, quite deftly because they've been brought up with it. So what do you think about that?
I think there's an opportunity there. I think the fact that everyone basically walks around with that camera. Look, when I was in the video business, we would rent out a camcorder, because people didn't own them. They were cost prohibitive. Like you said, you have a higher level technology that would come down. You could take a camera and go to the local, sporting event and film that. The fact that everyone's walking around with these devices in our hands, they're cameramen. I think it's key opportunity for local access television stations to tap into these, younger generation in our communities that have these. Say, hey, look, give us some content that we can put on that maybe viewers will, tune into, and not just the YouTubes and the TikToks and whatnot, but some local content where people can, hone their skills of communication and journalism and a whole slew of other professions that they may go into because of the technology that's available to them today. So I think it's an opportunity. In fact, that might be something that this show and this broadcast begins, and other cable access stations across the Commonwealth engage with the younger residents, get some content, put it up on the local access, and let people realize that, hey, this is something of value. There's only so many people that can work at the stations that can have the camera at the, the local parades and events and sporting events. So having cameramen all over the district might be something that bodes well for local access TV.
And actually that is starting to happen in Westford. I don't know, Jim, if you've noticed, but we're finally getting sports coverage. We have an intern now who's able to do that. Unfortunately, sports have ended for a while.
Yeah.
Due to COVID.
I think, over the years, you've seen a lot of different types of programming and interests. But, again, it's been kind of difficult. It's been difficult, not just with sports not playing, just to get to places safely. And protect your family and socially distance and especially for, I would ask you this question, Joyce, before the pandemic, and, I'd probably say, because, my wife did digital media for the Lowell Sun for a number of years.
And she was a wonderful, excellent reporter.
Oh, she was, and thank you. but I guess my question to you is, did you get a lot of people that are, are coming in and renting equipment and using it on their own, or did you see that decrease over the last few years, or
Great question. Well, I saw it decrease with the pandemic,
Mm-hmm,
the awareness of the pandemic in March. There were still, a few people who would trickle in, not the same people, like, somebody would have a short project and they'd come in, and then you wouldn't see them again, either at all or for months before they came back again.
And maybe that was folks that were connected to like cable camp or just people that want to do their own little movies. I know that was a very popular thing with young kids, et cetera, in the past. So.
Yeah, we had some adults coming regularly for a while. They start a project and finish it and then go on to other things.
So I think, Joyce, moving forward, January, we're going to be sworn in again, representative. We're going to be filing, getting ready to file bills. My goodness, from now until then, right? And, I would encourage, I know local cable access, I know Mass Access has endorsed Representative McMurtry's bill, and they've been great advocates. But I would encourage, Westford Cable Access, surrounding communities that you have a network with to come when the hearing happens and testify in favor of this bill.
Sounds like a good plan. Last night, the FCC chair, Ajit Pai, announced that he would be leaving the FCC in January. I'm wondering if either of you think this will have any impact on community access. I believe he was not really a supporter of the stations. So do you have any awareness of FCC involvement? Either of you?
Representative, I mean, I haven't heard anything specifically about a switch or a change on that. Certainly, I know there's been some trepidation under the current presidential administration on access issues, et cetera. We've heard it from national access groups and statewide groups, but to speak specifically to that, I haven't heard anything specific. I don't know, Representative.
Well, I mean, federal regulation does play a role in this. So the only thing I could say, Joyce, is, with the new administration taking office in January, can be some renewed hope and optimism that the new appointee does understand and supports local access TV. So we can only hope for that. But, in the meantime, we could continue to work with our local legislators in Massachusetts to make sure that this is an issue of continued discussion at a topic that is worthy of consideration and potentially some creative solution, so that you and other cable access stations can continue to do the good work that you do. And look at, for many years, as the representative referenced, going back to cable club and people checking out with the different cameras and whatnot. Local access has done a good job in being a part of the community. We just have to continue to maintain that relationship and build on that relationship, and hopefully our new session in the Massachusetts State House and then our federal partners in Washington, D.C. give us that opportunity to continue that good work, working together in collaboration.
That's great. And on that optimistic note, maybe we'll just bring this to a close. Is there anything else either of you would like Westford residents to know, or Dedham residents?
No, I appreciate this, and really, to your credit and to Representative Arciero's credit, to even host a topic of discussion on this. It's impressive. And again, I just want the folks in Westford to know that as a co-sponsor, Representative Arciero has been a leader on this issue. I know he believes in the work that you do, Joyce, and everyone at WestfordCAT. It's interesting because I represent Westwood and they call it WestCAT. I don't know, is that the term is in Westford as well?
No,
No.
Some people call it that, yeah.
For some reason, they always say, "Aren't you Rep. Arciero from Westwood?"
Yeah, do they?
They do. They don't say Westford though when they say Rep. McMurtry, do they?
Yeah, well, No, no. Occasionally I get Westford. So again, I think that's why we have such a good relationship and friendship. So, but no, I think we learned from this today. So I appreciate the opportunity. I thank you for allowing me to share some of the highlights of this, and I look forward to working with Representative Arciero in the next session so that we can continue to move this conversation forward.
Thank you, Representative. I really appreciate your time coming in, to meet with Joyce and I and the WestfordCAT team. Again, they've been wonderful asset to this community, and this is just such an important bill for WestfordCAT for cable access across the state. And your leadership is doesn't go unnoticed, and your experience to this is very important. And so I would just really appreciate your work on this. And, you said something very important, and that was the fact about conversations. And Joyce, I think sometimes you hear some legislators and politicians, we always say the word conversation. Well, I think it's a big part of our job. And, legislation changes quite a bit through conversations with folks about how to make things better, how to improve things, how to address things properly. And I think that's a big part of the process. And I feel confident that, with Representative McMurtry's leadership and the sponsors of this legislation, we'll get it right. And we're going to continue pushing.
Well, that's a very optimistic note. So let's end there. And thank you so very much, both of you. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, Joyce.
Pleasure.
For WestfordCAT News, this is Joyce Pellino Crane. See you around town.